Hello, are you out there? This is Mark with Homebrew Fever Dream Reviews, and we've got the Channeler Homebrew class by Outrageous Maximum. Now, this is not going to be a read-through of the class. I've done it, and there's simply too much of it to make an effective video about. Now, ultimately, let's read a little bit about what the Channeler class is supposed to be. It's extremely complex. Realistically, probably a little too complex for a tabletop RPG, to be quite honest. But let's take a look here. Reddit thought my post was spam for some reason. Maybe my link messed something up? I could find it just fine. Part of the idea behind this class is to make your own spell type of idea. That gives you mods to put together effects of your liking. As a result, some of the mod descriptions get pretty long, so I go into detail for what happens when they combine with each other mod. Now, the Channeler is going to have access to well over a dozen mods, and they do interact with each other in different ways. Some of them are stackable, some not, some mutually exclusive. The myriad of possible ways you can combine the mods, though, multiplies out into thousands of possibilities. I think that if this was put into a computer game where you could use a cauldron to arrange your channels, and you could adjust slider bars to keep track of the range you want, whether it's a wave, whether it's a point blank, whether it's beefed up or radiates or is explosive or whatever, and then you could save those under names. So you could be like sniper shot explosive wave, and you name it that, you save it, and now that's a spell you've created, but that the machinery of the software keeps track of everything for you. I think this could work really, really well in a video game. Absolutely. I think Daggerfall, the old Elder Scrolls game, had something very much like that. When you remember, like, the Mages Guild, you could go in there and you could craft your own spells using dozens and dozens of options. It was really awesome, actually. But there's pretty much functionally no way a person can keep track of this. That's a challenge I'm putting out before you guys. If you're interested in getting deep into this class, by all means, it's right here on r/homebrewfeverdreams. Take a look at it. It's verbose. It's maybe, 7-8 pages long, so you could read through it in about 30 minutes. But it is kind of like reading a math textbook, where a lot of the stuff you're going to have to think about, you're going to have to reread, and even when you've read through it completely, you will not remember all of the intricacies of how it interacts. So this is the kind of class where you'd have to have this book, the player's book, open to this page, or this printout, this packet next to you at all times, so that when you're at any level above, like, 7th level for this class, you're going to have to be reading the exclusions and how the interactions work. I could see it really bogging down the actions, the rounds of combat. So all right, Channeler. Stout dwarf, one light dancing around him, stands stubbornly as a vicious minotaur charges towards him. But as the minotaur pounces with great double-edged axe, the light discharges directly at him and throws the bull back where he began his charge. A well-dressed half-elf stands nearby, energy swirling around her crystal ball. She watches the minotaur get back up, angrier than ever, to take his revenge. She spins the energy around her and sends it towards the dwarf where it came from. As a bubble around him, the minotaur struggles to embed his axe into his short adversary. So, all of the classes described above are channelers, proficient and direct wielders of the magical weave. Wizards channel spells through repetition and memory, or by reciting from text. Channelers channel their spell by directly influencing the aether around them. Where other spellcasters may have more intricate and broader use spells, channelers can conjure the exact type of magic a situation calls for, using their creativity and their ingenuity. So, ultimately, you've got your standard level progression here. Ability score increases, proficiencies are boilerplate. One of the main things with this, though, is you can gather channeling energy, and you'll have a channeling energy cap that starts at 1 and progresses to 10. Now, the number of gathered energies, think of this like the weave energy. You're gathering together in like little points that you can spend. That's how many modifiers you can invoke on a single channeled blast of magical energy, essentially. Now, many of these can be stacked multiple times. So you might take 3 of your channel energy points and stack it into range, thus doubling the range every single time, something like that. Or you can use combinations. It gets very complicated very quickly, but it does max out at 10. But to be quite honest, if you channeled 10 points into there, it would be Titanic, and you could mix and match it so much. It would probably be literally, if you were to edit together the descriptions of what you could make with a 10-point channel, it would be a 2-page effect description of distance traveled, height, the types of resistances, the damage dice, the interactions, the liabilities, the exclusions. It gets nuts really fast. And then over on this side, you have your gathering rate. This is the amount of energy you can gather taking an action to draw it in, to gather energy. So in the earlier levels, 1 through 6, you can only gather 1 energy per turn, per action, essentially. So it's pretty slow to accumulate it, but it can all be released at once. So it's well balanced in the sense of damage output to action economy, because you don't ever have a supply of channel energy gathered together. If you're woken up in the middle of the night in a fight, you have 0 energy at your disposal. You must burn your actions to gather them bit by bit by bit. You can see here your gathering maxes out at 5. So as a 19th or 20th level player, you would have to spend 2 full actions to gather your 10 energies together, channeling energies, and then on the 3rd turn, you would be able to discharge those as a massive, massive thing. The fight could be over by then. So in that sense, I don't want to say this is an unbalanced class, although to be quite honest, I don't know how you would ever mechanically figure that out. It would take role-playing, but the number of combinations of the ways you could mix the mods together is so great that you could have 100 channelers, players, role-playing channelers, over the course of 20 sessions to get through all the possible combinations just a couple of times each, not even really knowing if it's balanced or not. So it does dovetail that much, the possibilities, you know. I'm trying to think of a good way to say it. It's like 4 to the 4th power kind of options, you know. It's like 4 becomes 16, becomes 64, becomes 256, it becomes 1024. It's that kind of like growth where the complexity just gets nuts. So per Crunker's rules of homebrew, we talk about fun, theme, balance. I think this has a strong theme. I think it would be reasonably fun. I think it may even be balanced. But the 4th and final thing is ease of understanding, and that's where this falls, unfortunately, catastrophically short. Because both the player and the DM would have to understand this perfectly for it to work, or every single turn that the player who is playing a channeler would take multiple minutes to suss out what they were going to do and what the effect would be. Unless you pre-made your channel spells and had them on a menu that you chose from, which is, I guess, a way you could do it. But then it kind of defeats the idea of weaving it together. I guess you would have to kind of faux do it that way. You would have to kind of pretend that that's what you're doing, but you're actually using pre-made things. In which case, you'd probably be better off just giving folks a list of 20 channel spell effects, like spells, that have these combinations of effects, but it's already been pre-done, pre-calculated with defined things. You don't have to worry about exclusions and all that stuff. Yeah? So, otherwise, yeah, Channeler is essentially clothy, pretty straightforward, very much like a wizard. They have a relatively short spell list down here for levels 1, 3, 5, and 7. You get to choose 2. These are very much utility spells, no damage involved. It's not until you get to your channeling. Ultimately, the boilerplate base for a channel is a 1 action to cast projectile with a range of 120 feet. It's instantaneous, it's somatic, targets 1 creature, and you make a ranged spell attack against it. On the hit, the creature takes 3d8 force damage. That's the vanilla channel. Then you add channel points on top of that to increase range, AoE, focus power, in many more options. As I go down through here, so initially we'd have things like you can arc it, you can beam it, you can increase intensity, you can increase range. We'll continue on here. At level 7, you can blast it, you can wave it, you can radiate it, you can point blank it. We'll keep going. At 11th, you can haunt or create mines out of it. So essentially, you can inflict somebody with these channels, or you can create mines, which are like virtual spaces where if a creature interacts with the space, that channel effect with all the stuff you put into it explodes on them, essentially like a landmine. But they are themselves types of channels. They cost 3 channel energies to do those. And then as we get down here, we have subclasses on top of the channeler. Boldness, manifest weapons, warrior, extra attacks, arcane shield, power weapon, energy binding, elemental weapon, improve, empowered weapon, arcane, battle master, true boldness, manifest armor. Complex weavers is another subclass that can do intricate channeling, so homing, standby, mass, elemental force, elemental status, multiple targets, defensive channelings, wards, zones, dislocates, chaotic blasts, ethereal star. It's a read. It's pretty cool, and you can imagine it's essentially like just functionally as complex of a class as you can make, but I think it far exceeds any normal human's ability, like IRL human player's ability to manage it. It's too much. It's just too much. When we look in the player's handbook, I'm not going to dig it out, but all the class descriptions are 3 pages, 4 pages. I don't know that it's broken in terms of balance or fun or theme, but for complexity, it is completely broken. Yeah, it's like driving a car if you have to assemble the car yourself every time you want to go anywhere, and then it disassembles. Then when you're ready to go to the next place, you got to assemble it again. So, not sure exactly what to do with that. I guess I'll post it. Our community is very small. I'm not trying to come down hard on Outrageous here. I mean, I don't even know if I should share it. I want to shine a light on it and let people know it's here. People can see it. I don't want you to think I ignored it, Outrageous. Kludgy is not the right word. That's the thing. It's kludgy. It's like, you know, it's got sticky stuff. It just doesn't really roll right. It's like, no, it's complexity. Its complexity is just off the charts. I mean, if you made a spreadsheet of this, it would go out to thousands of combination options. Thousands. So, at any rate, I appreciate you posting. I know you've got some other stuff we'll get into. Other homebrews to come. This one just, it was too big for me, to be quite honest, for me to handle personally. I made a 45-minute read video on this, just FYI. It got to the end before I hit the subclasses, and it was just like, I gotta stop. I can't keep adding to it. So, in the end, this is the video I'm putting out there for. It's just a 15-minute kind of, just a brief descriptor, maybe a warning as to what it is. But, yeah. Anyway, thanks for sharing. Take care.